Good. So I think that the first thing that I want to do, hello? Better? Yeah? OK. First thing that I want you to do is to ask you to close your eyes just for a few seconds. And I want you to think, like, fast forward 20 years, right? So you are 20 years in the future. I want you to think about, for a few seconds, when you look at yourself 20 years in the future, and you look back at your career, what would you like to see? Do that for a few seconds. OK. So how often do you think about your careers? And this image that you saw, first of all, could you even see an image? Right. So, and that's common. So someone said no. And sometimes when you look, we don't think too much about our careers. I speak to a lot of developers, and I realized that not many of us think deeply about our careers. So do we know where we want to be? So do you know where you want to be? Do you have a plan? How far are you in this plan? Right? So I think that when I don't know about you, but like I can definitely speak for myself. There's loads of people in our industry that I follow. So there are very interesting people. So for some of you, maybe you saw some of them today in this conference. And sometimes I remember, like, in the early days of my career, I used to look at those people that had a massive impact in my career. So I don't know, maybe, for some, I have quite a few people that I admire in our industry. And some of them wrote the books that I like, or the frameworks that I use, or they create techniques that I like, or methodologies. So, and I remember looking up to them, and I said, like, I'm nowhere as good as these people. Right? And it's a very interesting feeling, because you look at them and say, like, they're in a different league, right? And I I must confess, right? So I was almost stalking some of them, right? So fortunately for me, like now that I live in London, quite a few of these people either live there or they go to London very often, and I would take every opportunity that I had to go and speak to them. And I would like to see if they were real, right? And it's one thing that I learned from, I had how can I say, the opportunity to meet quite a few of the people that I admire. And with some of them, I actually asked them, like, how did you get to where you are? And one thing that was quite common that we don't often look at, we see where those people are. What we don't see is the sacrifice that they've made, right? So the world is an unfair place, right? But there is one of the very few things that is quite fair. Everyone in the planet has exactly the same amount of time in a day. We all have 24 hours, right? But of course, that when we say, like, we don't have time, so basically what you're saying, like, we need to change, to choose. If I want to focus in this thing, I cannot focus on the other thing. So when we say we don't have time, basically, what we really mean is that I might not choose to invest on this because I have other things that I want to invest. Some of the things are personal issues. Some people have complicated personal lives. Others don't. So every one of us we all have our own problems. I think that all of us can tell how sad our life can be and how tough, right? But so can those people that we admire. They also made a lot of sacrifices in getting there. And sometimes we just feel that they are lucky or they are smarter. And this is a very lazy way of seeing the world. Because, like, every time that you say that someone is smarter or have more time or, I don't know, they were born in a certain way, we are transferring the responsibility, right? So we are saying, it's not my fault. They have some privileges that I don't. So So, but everyone makes sacrifice, and everyone has problems. So we need to take that responsibility. So for me, like growing up, I said like, the world is unfair, and I'll take on me to make the change. If I want to get somewhere, it's up to me, and I'll make the sacrifices according to the situation I'm in my life. So I think that one of the key differences also when I spoke to these people and I look at them and I speak to them now is successful people have a profession and not a job. This is a massive distinction in successful careers, right? So a job is something that you need to do. A profession is something that is part of your life. And that's a very, very big difference in there, right? So I believe that sacrifices can be much smaller, or they may not feel as a sacrifice when you are passionate about that thing, right? When you just have a job, any sacrifice towards that job is a sacrifice. But when the thing that you do is part of your life, it's much easier to make that trade-off, to invest on that, because it's part of who you are, right? So it's not because we like something, we're going to be great at it. What my mom used to say, and that sounds cheesy to talk about my mom in a conference, but like, she said, like, if you want to be great at something, you need to love that thing, because you'll never be able to put the effort that is needed to be great at something if you don't love that, right? So one way of thinking about our careers is that making this distinction between jobs and careers, the same way that I talk about jobs versus profession, is the same thing. So think about your career as your jobs as a step in the ladder, right? So this ladder is something that you cannot see the end, the top. So that's your career, right? So this changes over time, according to your personal circumstances. As you evolve, as you get more mature, your preferences change. So that direction changes over time. But the jobs are not that direction. The jobs are steps in there, right? So for me, a successful career is a combination of cumulative and diverse experiences. So the more diverse you have in your experiences, the more you accumulate these kind of knowledges, the easier it gets for you to direct your career to somewhere, right? So, for example, experiencing, I was having this conversation today, actually, experiencing life in a small company and then experiencing life in a larger company is very different. So it gives you a completely different experience, and they're both great. So the more you can accumulate that, the better. And those are those steps. So some of those steps are larger, right? So sometimes you are in a place that you really enjoy and you want to stay there more. So this is not like a perfect ladder like that. Some of them are larger, some taller, deeper, so that the steps change, right? So, but it's important that you don't mix the two. What is a job and what is a career? So, but building a career is not always easy, right? So there are ups and downs. This ladder is not like just pointing up, and it shouldn't. The way that, for example, I come from Brazil. I was born in Brazil. I lived my life in Brazil until I was 27, and then I moved to the UK in 2004. So after some time, I got to a position that was okay in there. But then when I decided to move to the UK, I had to step back. I was going from a country to a country that has Oxford, Cambridge, UCL. So competing there is not easy. So I had to give quite a few steps back in my career to then start moving again. And that happens to all of us. If you want to change directions, if you want to learn a new discipline, new technology, it's not always going up. Sometimes you need to go down and then to move up again. I think that Roy was also talking about that, the J-curve in his talk. And sometimes we are just tired. Sometimes you say like, you know what, I'm tired. I don't know exactly what to do, so then you have a break, and it's fine for you to stay where you are. Not always we know where we are going. So this happens to me a few times. So when we don't know where we want to go, just stay put, right? So wait for that to dissipate. Wait a bit. And then sometimes staying where you are is not a bad idea. So moving jobs is always a big step for most of us. So make sure that you don't make the next step if you're not sure where you are going, right? So also careful not to follow the flow, right? So in our industry is full of, it's very fashionable, right? So it's microservices and functional programming, and then it's all those different things, all these different technologies and methodologies, and try not to follow that, because they are tools. But as soon as you start following, you don't know where you go, then you jump on a bandwagon of something, then you might be far more unhappy than you were, or unhappier than you were before. So I don't think the crowd, I don't like the crowd wisdom thing. So I'm more conservative. I prefer to wait and figure out what I really want to do. So I think that what is important is like I believe that good careers are designed, right? So I think that, of course, it is very difficult to plan anything. We cannot even plan how long it's going to take the next feature that we are building, right? So let alone plan a long-term career. But you can also use the same principles. You need to have a direction at least. You need to know, where am I going anyway? And then start one step at a time, trying to go there, right? I like to think about inspecting and adapting. So it's the same principle that we use for building software, for building a career. Like, you have a goal, and then you say, like, okay, so what is the next step for me to go there? And then you inspect and adapt, and that goal might shift. So, but it's important to know where you are going. I think that one thing that is interesting to think is the notion of career progression. So, when it comes to career, there's no right or wrong. Right? So if you want to be a specialist, if you want to be a generalist, if you want to be a developer, a coach, a trainer, or I don't know, a project manager, there's no right or wrong. There is what you want to do and what's going to make you happy. However, imagine, instead of a ladder now, imagine that you are in the middle of Google Maps, right? And you are in the main road in Google Maps. And you have all these other roads, all these junctions and roundabouts and everything else. This is your professional life, right? So every conversation you have, every talk that you watch, every new technology that you come across is a turn, right? So everything is a potential junction. You are in this main road, and there is these signs. Go there, if you want to do that, go there, if you want to keep going straight, go straight. But you need to be careful that, similar to driving, for example, if you are in a development, I think that most of us, mainly the people that have been in the industry for longer, we were pushed to do things that we might not want to do. A very common one for developers is to be pushed to management, right? So, or to architects or whatever. So we need to be careful to distinguish between what is a career progression and what is a change in careers. Right? Because for me, certain things are not a progression. I'm changing careers. The skills that I need to use in this new thing are brand new skills. I might reuse some of the ones that I have, but it's a whole new world in that new direction. And like when you are driving, the further you go in one direction, the harder it's going to be to go back and then follow the path that you were following some time ago. So you need to be very careful to understand that, right? So I also think that we quite often limit ourselves. So sometimes we are our worst enemy. For example, it's very, very common for me to see like developers saying, I'm a Java developer. This is limiting, right? Or .NET or JavaScript or whatever, right? Or I'm a coach. So this is limiting. You are basically taking your entire career and limiting that within a technology. So we need to be careful. So even the way that we speak about ourselves has a psychological impact in what we're going to do in the future. So there is also this friction. I think that we were having this conversation like just a few minutes ago, like with Ian and Raj, like about the generalist and specialist as well. So some people, They are specialized in one area, and they just don't want to go outside. Other people, they know a lot of everything, but they are a bit, I'm not sure if I want to go deep in this thing in here. And guess what? There's no right or wrong. Because there is the famous T-shape, right? So there's the breadth and the depth. So there is room for everyone. So there is room for specialists. Certain jobs, certain places, they need a specialist in something. And you can have a great career as a specialist. Other positions, other jobs, you need to have a good breadth. So for example, if you want to have, for example, if you aspire to be a CTO one day, or head of IT delivery, you cannot be, you can be a specialist, but that's not the most important skill that you need to have. You need to have breadth. You need to know what's going on in the world in order to choose the right direction to go. So certain positions, certain roles, they expect you to have a very broad knowledge of what's going on, and then pick one, while others don't. So, but even that is an important distinction when you are talking about your own career. I think that the question you should ask yourself is like, who are you as a professional? Right? Who are you? Who do you want to be as a professional? And all those choices, they matter. One thing that you need to be careful, and by the way, like my background, most of the work that I've done in my life was inside large organizations. I worked for small companies, for startups or product companies, but after, like in 21 years that I've been professional in the industry, most of this time was in large organizations. And I worked for them as a consultant or a direct employee. Right? So before my current company, I was a permanent employee at an investment bank for almost 3 years. So, which is a very odd. So for me to imagine myself in an investment bank. But anyway, so it was awesome. But one thing that is important, mainly for those working in very large organizations, is to be careful with the career within a company. Right? Certain people, they like that. It's like, you know what, I'm going to join. That's how I was taught, by the way. So coming from where I come from, for my dad, I should join a very large company, possibly the government, and just stay there. That was stability. So because I was coming from a country which has complicated economical situation, and of course that you want safety, right? So, but that's the mentality. So you need to be careful when you do that, because like when you choose a career within a company, the things that you need to do in order to have a career within a company are not necessarily the things that you would like to do. And the skills that you need to learn, or for example, you are rewarded quite often for skills that are not transferable. And this is what you need to understand. That's another turn. Because if you are following that, you are exploring now a new set of skills that are extremely important for that company, and that hopefully will give you a very great career and stability in that company, but it's a turn. And once you are going that direction, if you want to leave that company and do something else, the core skills you have now are not transferable. But that's an option, right? So this is the same for trainers or for coaches. I do training myself sometimes, but I know that is a complicated thing, so I try to avoid. I don't want to be a training company or a trainer because I will lose touch with reality. But if I want to do some trainings every now and again, that's okay. But those are the things that you need to be careful. So I think that think about roadmap and milestones, right? So you can apply that to your career and build that one job at a time. But we need to be careful here, because like every time I say, build your career one job at a time, quite often, people will misinterpret this, right? So I deliberately remove, like build your career one job at a time, because people will actually mention that online, and will completely misunderstand what I'm saying, because this can be mixed or confused with CV building. Right? When people go to companies and say, look, okay, that's where I'm going in my career, so I'm going to try to put this CQRS architecture in here, event sourcing and stuff, or use this technology because I want that to go to the next company. This is not being professional, right? So this is unethical. But I think that while you are within a company, that should be a great partnership. You should do what is best for the company, and then the company should also like do what is best for you and stuff. So, but make sure that the job is aligned. Each job is aligned to where you want to go. Another thing that is interesting is you might not know that yet, but you are running a company. Each one of you, each one of us. We all run a company that is us, right? So normally the way it works, there is a company that wants a service, and there is a professional that can provide that service. And then you have an agreement, you have a contract. The company says, hey, I need these kind of skills. You say, hey, I have those kind of skills. Can we have an agreement here? And yes, and then you have a business, right? So regardless if you're a permanent employee, contractor, consultant, it doesn't matter. So, but then, the return on investment of from the company's perspective is very clear. They have a very clear vision of what they need, and they hired someone that can provide, can satisfy that need. But a good agreement is an agreement that is bidirectional. So what is your return on investment? Because both are investing, right? So when you get a job, you need to think about, what is my return on investment? What do I want in exchange? And of course, that sometimes is money, and that is totally fine, right? As I said, we also, there is our personal side. We also have aspirations and so certain needs. And money, of course, is an essential part of it. But you need to have it very clear, because if you understand the return on investment on that job, then you can focus. So I can give you concrete examples. When I was in Brazil, just a few years before coming to the UK, I looked at the job market in the UK, and I was a Delphi developer. I was working with Delphi for quite a few years. Delphi didn't exist in the UK. So Java was the thing. So what I did, I joined a company. I first of all learned Java, took certification, those kind of stuff, but then I chose a job where I could have the experience of working with Java. And while I was working for that company, I gave my best. So it's not about CV building, but I gave everything I had. And I believe that they benefited from what I gave, and I got the Java experience. When I moved to the UK, the same thing. So I could not speak on the phone. My English was shit, right? So I could ask for a burger on McDonald's roughly, but I could not speak on the phone. And I wanted to work for a consultancy company. And then one of the recruiters said, you know what, like, mate, so when you understand the question on the phone, then you do quite well, but you barely understand the questions. So what I needed was an investment again. I needed to go to a smaller company, to be surrounded by people speaking in English, and take my time in the UK, in London, in a smaller place, get some friends, get to learn the culture, the language, and then go to the next stage. But that was the return. So the consultancies is what I normally like to do. I want that knowledge. I want that diversity. I want to learn different environments. But I also left. And I went for an investment bank. And they're like, why the hell would I go to an investment bank? Well, I was not looking for an investment bank. What I didn't have, I loved the whole extreme programming and agile and all this kind of good stuff, but I had never applied that globally. I had never been in a project where they had offshore teams and teams across the globe in different time zones and these massive systems. So that was missing from my career, and that's what I was craving. I was like, can I take those things and take for a global project? I didn't care if it would be an investment bank, how can I say, a media company, or I didn't care what kind of company. I wanted that environment. And it happened that I had this opportunity in investment bank. And I had a ball. I had a great time in there. So the scale of the things, that's what I was looking for. And when I left, I was looking for other things. So what I was looking for was, I wanted to have my own company. And so when you think about, so what are you looking for as a return? And when you should leave that company, it's not only about, like, for example, a lot of people would say, oh, there's nothing left to learn. There's always something to learn. Maybe what is left to learn is not aligned to where you want to go. But if you know the return and where you are going, so a good time to leave is when the path that you want to go is not aligned to the company that you are working for. And it's not because your employer is evil, right? So, for example, I'm a type of person that I would never, ever, in a billion years, criticize a previous employer. Every company has problems. You just change them. You just change which problems you want to have, right? So, but if there is a problem, fortunately for us, for everyone in this room, is a developer's market. We can go wherever we want in the world. So we have options. So for me, when I was leaving, I wanted things that they could not offer me. And that's why I decided to leave. But I had a great time in all my previous employers. So what should we look for? But then, so now we are at that stage where we know kind of where we are going. We know the kind of return. And now what should we look for, right? So, or how do we find even these dream jobs? So when I ask people, like, can you describe your dream job? So quite often they can't. They say, oh yeah, I want to learn more and stuff, but it's not enough. So when we talk about, oh, we should be happy every morning, right? So that's great, but like, first of all, know what you want. And then there is one thing that is very, very important. Very, very important. Never, ever, if you're looking for your dream job, use a bloody recruiter, right? They are a disease in our industry that needs to be eradicated, right? Because they don't understand what you want, right? So there is nothing more, well, the good companies, they love when people apply directly. If you're looking for a job, don't go to a recruiter and say, hey, Mr. Recruiter, here's my CV, fire it away, right? And then, all of a sudden, you have all these job interviews and you feel good about it. You say, oh yeah, I'm probably very good because the recruiters are calling me every single day. Well, that might be true. But as I said, as a quick poll, raise your hand if your company is recruiting developers. Raise your hand. Look around. Keep your hands up. Those are all the companies in this conference that are recruiting people. So why on earth would I go to a recruiter and ask that person to find my dream job? Right? So apply directly. You cannot even imagine if you don't do these kind of things. The advantage that you're going to have to be hired by the company that you want when you apply directly, and you go to their careers page or whatever, and you send a nice email and say, hey, my name is this, I researched your company, I met some of your people, this is who I am, and I would love to have a chat and work for you. You would be surprised, like, if they don't hire you, they are really stupid. Even if you don't have the right skills, they would be stupid not to hire someone that applied like, or maybe like there are certain constraints and that they cannot hire you, but like the chances of being hired is massive, right? So also be careful not to choose companies where IT is a strategic part of the business and not just a cost center, right? This is also very, very important. So I think that this is where I would like to talk. So although we think about those things, how am I doing for time? It's quite often when you change jobs, you get very excited, right? So, oh, wow, that's my new dream job. So this is a big thing for us, right? And then we are all with that energy, oh, that's a new job, and you want to get there and then just get cracking and do stuff. And then 2 months, 3 months, 6 months later, you are miserable again. All right? So like, what went wrong with my dream job? And then, so how could we have avoided that? So I think that first of all, is think about first of all, how did you find that job? Did you send just tons of CVs and just picked one? The one that called you first and gave you the amount of money you want? To say, yeah, that sounds great. They're paying what I want. So then it's your fault, like your problem, right? So you should be miserable anyway. But so there is a distinction. Are you finding a job or the job? Because there is a massive difference in there, right? So, but even when you are trying to find the job, we make mistakes. We are very bad at looking what I call the metadata. So when you are in a recruitment process, when you are looking at, I don't know, a job ad or something, there is a whole metadata in the recruitment process that we completely ignore quite often. So what do I mean by that? So recruitment is a two-way street. right? So the recruitment process is designed in a way that the company will get the information that they need from you and then decide if they want to hire you or not. But on the other side, again, remember the amount of hands we have in here? Oh, these companies are hiring, right? It's not that you don't have an option. You are just a poor kid with no option, right? So you also can select. So you need to extract the data that you need to see if you want to be there, right? So I'll give you a few examples, right? So let's look at this. Let's see the amount of rubbish that we see in some of the jobs. How many of you work with Java, JVM? Just to have a... Okay, a great majority of you, so I don't need to explain too much. Well, it should be self-explanatory anyway. So there are different types of job ads, but most of them, at least in the UK, like in the financial companies, quite often, the first thing in the metadata that you look at is, are those job specs designed to be a mass market thing, or they are very specific? I'll give you a few examples. A mass market job spec or recruitment process, they are designed to filter out the rubbish ones, but they're not designed to attract the best, right? So, for example, this is a very, very traditional, kind of like 2 years old job spec, but I checked recently, I still can find this. So, this is a job ad that we see popular in our UK job sites. Let's look at the metadata in here. So, let's start in there. So, for those of you that work with Java, what is wrong with that acronym, J2SE and J2E? It's obsolete. So when JEE came about, when was it changed? When did we change from J2EE to JEE? 10 years ago. A few years ago, like many years ago. 2006. 2006, Java 5. So this job spec hasn't been updated for at least 10 years. This is metadata. So when you are applying to this, it's like, either who wrote that is not a developer, which is already suspicious, or if they are a developer, God, I don't want to work there, right? So I love the SQL experience required as well, but that's fine. So the ideal candidate will have for this is Java and have a passion for technology, as long as it's Java, of course. So also there is a salary range, which is also interesting, because when you have a salary range that is that small, that's the mass market thing. They don't care if you are an inexperienced developer full of potential that they can grow, or if you are an extremely senior developer that they can use you in many different ways. Now, they have just a very thing, cookie cutter, okay, we need a few developers, that's the range, and that's where we put them. This is metadata. So when you are applying for these kind of companies, just in the first 2-3 paragraphs, you already can extract information of the company. And then there is a bonus as well. So I personally don't like the bonus culture. I think that every company that is specified that they have bonus is already an environment that I don't like, because people are always chasing what would give them the highest bonus and not in doing what is right for the company. So this is already a thing that I would not like, right? So, but let's see what else. So let's see what is required. So how many of you studied computer science? Right. How many of you did not have a computer science degree? Yeah, you are not good for this. You are out. Don't even care, never spoke to you, but you are shit, right? So you don't fit my organization. That's how it works. So I come from Brazil. I don't even know that what Chuan means, right? So there is a Chuan thing. I have no clue what that is. We don't have that in Brazil. So shall I apply or not? 5+ years of, so again, experience is measured in years, right? So, intensive years, oh yeah, exactly. I need to highlight that. I need to highlight, well, spotted, yeah, exactly, intensive years, right, what does that mean anyway? And then you'll be able to, you have the full software development life cycle, aka waterfall, right? So that's what you are going for. But doesn't stop there, of course. So let's see what they not essential means what we don't care, but we need to have, otherwise we're not so cool. That's what non-essential in a job spec means, right? So the one that I love the most is experience in an agile environment, including TDD, JUnit, etc. It's this bucket of stuff, right? So let's put we take like one practice of one of the agile methodologies, we mix that with a unit testing framework, and etc. And that is our agile culture, that we don't care too much, but son, if you join us, we will teach you that, right? Because it's not important, but we teach. So let's see what else we can find in there. That's cool. So you will have a close interactions with the system architect, the Java team leaders, the gods, right? The gods of the company. We are giving you the pleasure of working close to these people, because otherwise you would not even see them, right? So you need to feel that you are important. So what else we have? Oh, yeah. So knowing that this is from a financial institution, that I removed the name, otherwise I can be prosecuted or whatever, or sued. So ample opportunities to expand banking and funds management experience and business experience. So basically what this means for a financial institution is that development is shit, right? You have no future as a developer. However, I'm going to give you exposure to our business, and then you can have a proper career. That's what that means. So, but I love that, because they actually wrote that they have the passion, right? So, yeah, that's where passionate people go to die. So, let's look at these different job specs. So this is a job spec that I actually published with authorization from the company in my own book, and inspired us to write ours as well. I found it really cool. This is a few years old, actually, but see let's the contrast. So, bang, right at the beginning, working TDD experience is essential for this role. Bang, opinionated. But I don't like TDD. Fuck it, don't apply. That's how it works. So basically, what they are saying is, I love opinionated things. The reason is that I like that is make my decision easy. That's what they value. I fit or I don't fit. It's not mass market. It's not like whoever comes along is 50 to 60K, and you know Java intensively, right? So you've done Java intensively for a few years, then you are in. So here is basically, this is the practice that we use. This is the most important one. If you like it, we want to speak to you, otherwise don't apply. And then, before they go on about you, that's pretty cool. You care, passionate about what you do, and I love that. I know, right? So he's painful, I know. You go through that. So actions rather waffly personal statements on our CV. Let's love that, right? So, and you like software design, and for you it's more than a job. That's pretty cool. So I'm interested now. So let's see what's the role. So our teams are cross-functional, highly autonomous, no architects, completely different. There's no the gods of the Olimpo, right? So no architects, project managers, or middle management. So high collaborative, and it's not right for everyone. But we think that this is the best way to build software. Bang, opinionated again. If you don't like that, if you don't like this whole waffy, tree-hugging collaboration, yeah, don't go there, right? So, but that is, they are exposing their culture. This is how we work, and there's more. So, for example, among other things, pair programming, TDD, BDD, refactoring, all this kind of good stuff, this is what we work. And we know that typing is not a bottleneck. So they understand that they don't need to say, you need to be 8 hours typing, otherwise you're not working. They understand that the typing is not a bottleneck. And by the way, that's what we have to improve our learning, right? So the 2 sessions a week, and dojos, and attend conferences. So I love that. So we are not perfect, and we are not afraid to say so. We recognize we have many problems which needs to be solving, and a long way to go on in our journey of continuous improvement. And that's why we have a culture of learning. It's awesome, right? So what else? We are using an investigate. Oh, yeah. So remember the other one is like what is essential, not essential. Here is basically what they're saying is what we use. So if you want to work here, this is what we use. That's the tech stack. But we are always investigating other things. We are open to try out stuff. But currently, that's what we do. And also, we are very keen on open source. So if you want to see how we code, just go to our GitHub account. How awesome is that? Right? So quite often, when you go to an interview, shit, I'm really running out of time. I should speak less. So a lot of companies will lie to you, of course, right? So we all lie in interviews, right? So and then I say, oh, we have the best people. I wonder how that would work if every company had the best people in the world. How would that work, right? So, but then the question that I normally ask is like, oh, that's really great that you have the best people in your company. Who the fuck are they? I want to see them. If they're the best, like, I probably know them or I probably have seen them. So for me, like, I understand that very large organizations could not have a page with tens of thousands of people. I can understand that. But you need to see, like, for example, if you have the best people, I want to see who they are. I want to judge them myself. I want to see those faces. And when you go to some organizations, what you see in there, CEO, CTO, CIO, the office manager, and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, that's great that those people exist. But like, you're hiring a developer. Like, who am I going to work with? So this is metadata, right? So I normally trust more the companies that show their people. Say, this is who we are. That's our people. So if you join us, those are the people that you're going to be working with. If you hire us as a company, those are the people that are going to show up in your organization to work with you. They are proud to show their people. And that's what I normally prefer. So recruitment phases. So there's a whole metadata in there as well. So how many phases do you have? What happened during these phases? Who do you speak to? Do you speak? Are the people that you are going to be working with part of the recruitment process? Are you pairing with them? Because I want to interview them as well. I want to interview them myself. I want to, and I say like, if they don't have pair programming, for me it's a smell. So you want to see my skills? I want to see yours. Let's pair. Let's pair and see if we can work together. And I don't want to pair with one person. If I could pair with more people, fine. So I think those are the things that when you analyze the recruitment, the phases, the recruitment process of a company, there's a lot that you can extract from there. So this is all the metadata that you can find. So code submission, I'm going to speed up a bit. So code submission, a lot of people hate it. We alternate. Sometimes we send, sometimes not. If you want to know why, I can explain later. But if you are given a code test to be done, the minimum that I would expect is a code review. And not just say, oh yeah, passed, not passed. I want to know, like, if I'm doing that, you're going to review my code, and I want to discuss your revision. Because I find disrespectful to tell candidates to spend hours of their time and not give them feedback. So regardless if you are hiring or not hiring, regardless, they should have feedback. Pair programming, exactly the same thing. I want to pair with people. If they're hiring me as a developer, or if they're hiring developers, we pair. If you cannot work together, then it doesn't matter, right? So, and as a candidate, you should ask for it, actually. So, brain teasers. How many Maltesers can we fit in a football stadium? How many petrol stations we can find between one city? You know that kind of shit, right? So Google created that. I don't know, a decade ago, they started using as part of their recruitment process. And a lot of companies, oh, if Google is doing that, we should do that as well. And then everyone started doing that kind of nonsense, right? And then, all of a sudden, Google wrote a big post and stuff. I think it was even New York Times or whatever. Say, yeah, we applied that for a few years and it made no sense. We are not doing that anymore. And now all the other companies say, oh, shit. What do we do now? We change then, right? So it's like, for example, you go there and say, like, they give a piece of paper and a pen and say, hey, I want you to write code in a piece of paper. So what are you gonna? So can you give me a scissors for me to do the refactoring, right? So what do you want me to do, right? Yeah, there was this other newspaper. I remember I applied that many years ago. They had this online testing. You know that kind of piece of crap that they don't have time to do their recruitment process. They outsource to someone, and the whole thing was a back-end Java developer, highly scalable, blah 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 blah. No front end at all. That was part of the spec. And they said you need to do this online test. And I went there. It was that random generated thing that is blocking your entire desktop and stuff. So it was 30 questions. I think that I was unlucky because like 12 or 13 questions were about applets. And I just, okay, I think that is this and stuff. So basically, out of 30 questions, I got, I think, the 26 right, and that put me just under 90%. right? So the recruitment, I was using recruiters, that was a while back. And then recruiters said, oh, the guys are deliberating if they're going to invite you to the face-to-face interview or not, because they only bring people that achieve more than 90%. And I said, wow, okay, so that's great. So you can tell them to fuck themselves, because I'm not working here. And it's like, who the hell was his up at least today? Right? It's a job, a backend, you're going to say, oh, if I didn't do well in applets, then I cannot apply, so I don't want that. So that is the thing. They are filtering people for the wrong criteria. So I can go on and on for this, right? So, but like, great teams want great people. So this is very important. So the companies that really care about their development teams, they are going to have a good process, right? They are going to make sure that the candidates are meeting the people that they're going to be working with. The people that are working with the candidates, they make the decision. So just be aware of it. So the only thing is that how do you find great companies to work for? Remember the hands? That's exactly how you do. So going to the meetups and conferences and stuff, speak to people, right? Everyone is hiring, so just go to them and say, hey, who do you work for? What do you do? Or go to people and say, hey, this is what I do. So see if you can find and speak to the real people doing the work, right? So, but then, this is another important thing. A lot of people say, of course, I want to join a company where I can learn a lot, and I have time to learn, and they value what I do, and all this kind of stuff. And it's a very egotistical point of view, right? So quite often I speak to people, and they judge their companies in how much benefits or time for people to learn they offer. So the question I should ask yourself is like, what do I bring to the table? Because if there is a group of good people in here, yeah, of course you want to be part of this group. But does the group want you to be part of it? What do you bring? Right? So you need to be at the top of your game. If you want to join a good team, you need to be good yourself. Right? So also, you need to stop of being a victim and thinking that the world should revolve around us for us to be comfortable, and as if we call in English a sense of entitlement. Oh, the company needs to provide me time for learning and for this and buy my books and pay my conference. Said who? So the thing is, think about yourself. So you go to dentists, you go to doctors, to hairdressers, you might hire a plumber or a builder to do something in your house, you might need an accountant or a lawyer or whatever. So there are loads of services that we as people, we pay for. Can you imagine your dentist? You go there, oh, my teeth is aching, and then the person looks at your mouth and say, shit, I don't know much about this, mate, but maybe you could pay me a conference. Like, maybe, can you send me on a training course? And let's say that you are really messed up in your head, right? So, yeah, of course, Mr. Dentist, I'll pay you a conference and I'll buy you a book and a training course. And then this person goes out, acquire the knowledge with your own money, and come back and charge you for the service. How mental is that? Does it make sense? Would you do that? Because if the answer is no, why do we expect your company to do the same for you? Right? So that's what you need to think about. If you want to be a professional, if you want to have a proper career, you need to take ownership. You don't let a company control what you learn and when you learn, right? So this is where I start. So I come from Brazil. This is a town in the middle of bloody nowhere. And one of the few things that I had growing up was this place. This is a train station. That's where my dad used to take me and my little sister to see the train that would come every 2 hours or something, and not passengers, just cargo and stuff. So I remember when I was a kid, like looking at it, and this makes me quite emotional when I look back at this picture, because this brings me a lot of memories, because I always wanted more for my life. But like, as I said, the world is not a fair place, right? I can shout at the Europeans and Americans, hey, I'm a poor kid from South America, and you owe me something. You owe me fucking nothing, right? So then, but that's what I had. And I remember speaking to my father growing up and say, like, I would love to have to do more, right? This is where it is, by the way. So even newspapers would take 2 days to get there when I was growing up, right? So education was very poor, but I wanted more. I wanted to go out and see the world. And we didn't have internet, of course, like it was a long time ago, but like, I had access to a library, and I built this obsession with London. I cannot explain what that is, but every time that I would see the Big Ben and so on, I want to be there. There was this magic in my head about this city and the Big Ben and stuff. And I remember speaking to my dad and looking at the train and stuff like, I would love to live there one day. And my father would not even entertain that conversation because in his head it was so surreal for us to, he said like, now I know because like I speak to my dad today, and then he said like, those conversations was painful as a dad, as a father, to listen to the dreams of your kid and know that you cannot afford to make that happen, right? So, but the thing is, I'll make it this short. Like the point is that I'm here today. And that was not an easy journey, right? It took a long time. And I didn't get here blaming the world that they owe me something. And I'm raising my daughter the same way that my dad raised my sister, right? Yeah, you are a woman. And things will be tough for you in certain aspects. Deal with it. The same way that I had, and many other people had too. So of course we can make the world better. If we can, like we are in this position today, we can make the world better for other people. But if you are the other people, don't expect that from anyone. Just do your thing. So this is important, right? So you cannot always change people around you. I had a lot of people saying that you are not going to get there. Forget about this thing. This is stupid. But you can change the people that you choose to be around. And so if you're surrounded by people that push you up, first of all, you cannot be your own enemy. You need to push yourself up. You cannot say, I cannot do that. So this doesn't exist in my head. There's nothing that I cannot do. It may take like forever. But like, everything can be possible. But I'm not going to be around people saying, no, you cannot achieve this. Right? So sometimes you don't know where we want to go, and that's fine. And that's totally fine. I was in this position, and the best thing that you can do, create options. No one, unless that you are a very special person, no one is going to knock at your door and say, hey, son, I have this great opportunity for you. Right? So you need to go and get it. But how do you do that? You expose yourself. Show to the world what you can do. And as I said, create those options. Publish your stuff. Right? Go to meetups, share your knowledge. Every time that you share something with someone, you are creating opportunities. And if you create enough opportunities, then things start coming to you instead of you going after them. Right? So you don't need to decide where to go, but you can open some doors. And once those doors are open to you, you can choose which one you want to enter. So money is always important. However, knowledge no one will take away from you. Right? You carry it always. And fortunately for us, this is not true for quite a few industries, but it's definitely true for us. Software developers are not going to starve. Right? You need to be really competent as a developer not to find a job or starve. Right? So remember the hands? Exactly. So if you favor learning, you will never have a problem with money in our industry. So try to get a diverse experience. Try to expose yourself. Don't just, if you have a single job and it's aligned to where you want to be in the future, stay there. Stay there for the rest of your life. But because it's aligned. But otherwise, experience different things, mainly in the first half of your career, at the beginning of your career, because then, once you experience different things, you will probably say, okay, that's what I want to go now, because you know more about what is available to you. The only thing is, be careful with the T-shape. Like, when you have the breadth, you need to be careful if you don't have anything that you master, right? So I personally prefer a well-balanced T, right? So there is some breadth, and there is some depth. If you just go in one of the extremes, you might be limiting what you can do in the future, but it's also a choice. So for me, the biggest message is own your career. Don't let companies, don't let anyone control your career, right? You decide what to learn, when you learn, and you do that with your money. If other companies are helping you, if companies are creating a space where you can learn, you can share, and you can take some time off the day-to-day job to learn, value those companies. But it's not their obligation, right? Another thing, I have a wife, I have kids, right? So I have my own problems, my personal life, as everyone else. But I think that it's very sad when people say, oh, in my personal life and in my professional life, You are one person. And if you are one person, but you divide yourself in two, there is two lives, you are always in conflict. If you are at work, you are worried because you are not at home. If you are at home, you are worried because you are not doing something with your career. So you are always struggling, and whichever one you are on, you are always with that sense of you are leaving something behind. I know that it's not easy, and it's impossible for me to give you a recipe. You need to figure out what that is, but you need to have a single life. And it starts when you stop having a job and you start having a career. Because when you have a career, that becomes part of who you are. The same way that your family is part of who you are, your career becomes who you are as well. And then it's much easier to start juggling that. So we see mainly in the software craftsmanship world, our careers is a long journey, right? We are not going to achieve mastery, but this journey, this path to learning, to getting better, to doing our best is what we like, is what we want. So, yes, you cannot complain about your life. So say, yeah, but my job, you need to know where you are going, otherwise it doesn't matter, right? So you probably saw in this conference today a lot of great talks. You probably learned a lot of things, I hope. I hope that you saw some people that inspired you today. Each one of the things that you learned today, that you've seen today, is a turn, right? So you saw new trends, new thinking, so you met new people. Use that today to start planning where you want to go next, right? So love your family and friends, love your profession, have one life. Thank you.